Welcome, I'm Alex Carter, and today we're taking a road trip through the back roads of American history. Instead of the greatest presidents, we're visiting the 5 most disastrous ones, those whose decisions left the country in turmoil. This isn't about mockery, it's about understanding how leadership failures shaped the nation. We'll explore the context, the challenges, and the choices that landed these presidents at the bottom. Think of it as a cautionary tale. What happens when the person in charge takes a wrong turn? We're sticking to facts and historian consensus. No internet brawls here. So buckle up and grab your historical maps. Let's begin our tour of the presidential moments that make you go, oof, that happened. Our first stop, the eve of the Civil War. Our first stop is the late 1850s, with James Buchanan at the wheel. Buchanan, the only lifelong bachelor to ever serve as president, entered office at a time when the United States was already teetering on the edge of disaster. The country was deeply divided, and the question of slavery was tearing the nation apart. Buchanan saw the Civil War coming and did nothing to stop it. He watched as the rift between North and South widened, hoping the storm would pass if he simply stayed out of its way. He tried to play the middle, but in a nation splitting over slavery, moderation just made him irrelevant. Instead of taking a stand, Buchanan clung to the hope that compromise would somehow hold the country together, even as tempers flared and violence loomed. The Dred Scott decision, which denied rights to African Americans, happened on his watch, and he quietly supported it, hoping it would settle the issue. Buchanan even pressured the Supreme Court behind the scenes, believing a strong ruling would end the debate over slavery for good. It only made things worse. The decision outraged abolitionists and emboldened pro-slavery forces, deepening the national crisis. In Kansas, violence erupted over slavery. The territory became a battleground, with neighbors turning against each other in a bloody struggle known as Bleeding Kansas. Buchanan backed the pro-slavery side, ignoring the will of the people. He supported a fraudulent pro-slavery government in Kansas, dismissing the majority who opposed slavery's expansion. As southern states began to secede, Buchanan declared it illegal but claimed he had no power to stop it, paralyzed by indecision. He insisted the Constitution tied his hands, refusing to act as the Union unraveled before his eyes. He handed Lincoln a nation already in pieces. By the time Abraham Lincoln took office, 7 states had already left the Union and the country was on the brink of war. Buchanan's legacy is inaction when action was desperately needed. He left the presidency with the government in chaos and the people divided, his leadership absent when it mattered most. He missed the moral crisis, focusing on legal technicalities as the country collapsed. Instead of rising to the challenge, Buchanan hid behind paperwork and precedent, unable or unwilling to confront the real issues. Historians rank him at the bottom because he presided over the nation's dissolution. His failure to act decisively is seen as one of the greatest presidential failures in American history. He had a chance to lead, but left the wheel unmanned. The country needed a steady hand, but Buchanan let the ship drift toward disaster. As we leave the 1850s, we see how a failure of leadership can create a catastrophe that echoes for generations. The consequences of Buchanan's inaction would haunt the nation for years to come, shaping the course of American history. Buchanan wasn't the cause of the Civil War, but he did the least to stop it. His refusal to confront the crisis head-on left the country vulnerable to the conflict that followed. Sometimes doing nothing is the worst decision of all. In moments of crisis, silence and inaction can be as damaging as the wrong action. Next up, the man who tried to rebuild the nation and failed. On to Andrew Johnson. After the Civil War, Andrew Johnson took over, tasked with rebuilding the nation. As the 17th President of the United States, he faced the monumental challenge of uniting a country torn apart by years of brutal conflict. The nation looked to him for leadership and a path forward. Johnson's plan for Reconstruction? Pretend the war never happened. He believed in a swift restoration of the southern states without significant changes to their pre-war social structures. This approach was controversial and widely criticized. He handed out pardons to ex-Confederates and let southern states rejoin the Union with minimal consequences. This leniency allowed many former Confederate leaders to regain power, undermining efforts to promote equality and justice. Freed African Americans got little protection, no voting rights, no real civil rights. Despite their newfound freedom, they faced immense challenges and systemic discrimination. The result? Black codes. Laws that kept African Americans in virtual bondage. These laws severely restricted their rights and freedoms, ensuring that the social hierarchy of the South remained largely unchanged. Congress fought back, passing the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment. These measures aimed to secure equal rights for all citizens and to counteract Johnson's lenient policies. Johnson vetoed both, forcing Congress to override him. His repeated clashes with Congress highlighted the deep divisions within the government over how to handle Reconstruction. His stubbornness led to impeachment. He survived by a single vote, but his power was gone. The impeachment trial was a dramatic and unprecedented event in American history, reflecting the intense political strife of the era. Johnson's leniency let the old Southern power structure return, paving the way for Jim Crow and a century of oppression. His failure to enforce meaningful reforms had long-lasting repercussions for African Americans. He had a historic chance to build a just society, but fought to preserve old injustices. His presidency is often seen as a missed opportunity to create a more equitable nation. Johnson's presidency is a warning. Winning the war is one thing, but winning the peace is another. His tenure serves as a cautionary tale about the complexities of post-war governance. His resistance to progress left the nation divided and betrayed the promise of Reconstruction. The legacy of his presidency is a stark reminder of the importance of visionary leadership in times of national crisis. That's why he's ranked among the worst. His inability to rise to the occasion and his regressive policies have cemented his place in history as one of the least effective presidents. Next, we fast forward to the Roaring Twenties and a presidency undone by scandal. The 1920s were a time of great change and upheaval in America, setting the stage for another controversial leader. Buckle up for Warren G. Harding. His presidency would be marked by corruption and scandal, leaving a lasting impact on the nation's political landscape. Sometimes the wrong friends can sink a presidency. Let's see how. The 1920s, an era of jazz, wild prosperity, and a nation eager to move past the trauma of World War I. In the midst of this roaring decade, Warren G. Harding took up residence in the White House, promising Americans a return to normalcy. The country was ready for stability, but what it got was something else entirely. Harding's campaign slogan sounded reassuring, but his presidency quickly became synonymous with scandal and corruption. Instead of calm, the nation witnessed a storm of backroom deals and shady politics that would shake the public's faith in government for years to come. Harding himself admitted he was in over his head. Lacking confidence in his own abilities, he handed over much of his authority to his old friends from Ohio, men who became known as the infamous Ohio Gang. These were not seasoned statesmen, but political cronies who saw opportunity in the corridors of power. The Ohio Gang treated the government like their personal piggy bank. The most notorious scandal, Teapot Dome, saw top officials accepting bribes in exchange for lucrative oil leases, selling out the nation's resources for personal gain. It was a betrayal that stunned the country. The corruption didn't stop there. The head of the Veterans Bureau, appointed by Harding, embezzled millions of dollars that were meant to care for wounded World War I veterans. Money that should have gone to healing heroes instead lined the pockets of the greedy. Even the nation's top law enforcement officer, Attorney General Harry Daugherty, was implicated, accused of taking bribes and selling influence. The very people meant to uphold the law were breaking it behind closed doors. Harding was devastated as the truth came out. He was a man who valued loyalty, but his trust in the wrong people proved disastrous. The betrayals by his closest friends weighed heavily on him, and his inability to rein them in became his greatest failing. Yet Harding's presidency wasn't entirely without merit. He pardoned the famous socialist Eugene Debs, showing a rare moment of compassion, and established the Bureau of the Budget, a step toward modernizing government finances. But these achievements were quickly overshadowed by the tidal wave of scandal. Before the full extent of the corruption was revealed, Harding died suddenly while still in office. His passing spared him the humiliation of impeachment, but left the nation reeling from the revelations that followed. The Harding administration became a cautionary tale, a symbol of unchecked government corruption and the dangers of cronyism. Public trust in Washington was deeply shaken, and the scars would last for decades. The lesson is clear: a president's friends and advisors can shape a legacy as much as any policy. Surrounding yourself with the wrong people can bring down even the highest office in the land. Harding was known as a nice guy, but sometimes good intentions and a friendly smile aren't enough to lead a nation. Next, we travel back to the 1850s for another troubled presidency, Franklin Pierce. a man whose decisions would have consequences far beyond his time. Pierce tried to keep the peace in a nation already divided, but instead, his actions poured fuel on the fire of conflict. Let's see how Franklin Pierce's choices helped set the stage for the coming Civil War, and why his presidency is remembered as one of the most disastrous in American history. Meet Franklin Pierce, the 14th president, a Northerner with aggressively pro-slavery policies. Personal tragedy haunted his term, but his decisions made things worse. Pierce championed the Kansas-Nebraska Act, repealing the Missouri Compromise and letting new territories decide on slavery. This popular sovereignty idea led to violence, bleeding Kansas, and destroyed the fragile peace. The Whig Party collapsed and the Republican Party rose in response. Pierce's administration sided with pro-slavery forces, deepening national divisions. He even supported the Austin Manifesto, a failed plan to seize Cuba for slavery, an international embarrassment. By the end, his own party refused to renominate him. Pierce's legacy: he didn't just fail to calm tensions, he made them explode. The Kansas-Nebraska Act set the nation on the path to civil war. Pierce was a passenger, and a mapmaker, on the road to disunion. Next, we jump to the Great Depression and a president who gave the wrong answers at the worst time. Herbert Hoover is up next. Sometimes good intentions aren't enough. The stock market crashes, the Great Depression begins, and Herbert Hoover is president. Hoover was brilliant and well-intentioned, but stuck to rugged individualism, believing government aid would destroy self-reliance. As banks failed and unemployment soared, Hoover insisted recovery was just around the corner. His response: indirect aid to banks and businesses, but little direct help for the suffering. The Smoot-Hawley tariff backfired, sparking a global trade war and deepening the crisis. The Bonus Army incident sealed his fate. Veterans demanding payment were driven out by the army, shocking the nation. Hoover's failure was one of imagination and empathy. He couldn't adapt to the scale of the emergency. When FDR promised a New Deal, the country was ready for change. Hoover left office defeated, convinced he'd been right. Historians see him as a symbol of a leader who failed to meet the moment. Even good men can fail if they can't adapt. Our tour of presidential low points is almost over. What can we learn from these failures? Let's wrap up. Our journey through history's roughest presidencies ends here. We've seen how failed leadership can shape a nation's fate, from the Civil War to the Great Depression. These stories aren't just about blame, they're lessons in what to avoid. If you found this valuable, hit subscribe and join us for more history deep dives. We look back not to judge, but to learn. Understanding the failures of Buchanan, Johnson, Harding, Pierce, and Hoover helps us recognize what matters in our leaders today. History is a guidebook, full of lessons on what to do and what not to do. By learning from these low points, we can build a better future. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next trip. Stay curious.